Binesikwe irigo makwa hindodeum. Gawa babane kagish kaniganing and dunjaba migwich. Nindoe maganatak migwich. Greeting you in Ojibwe. That's a language in my community. It's what we work on, trying to recover our language. It's a part of recovering your knowledge of who you are as people and celebrating the fact that cultural diversity is as important as biological diversity in the world, because there are a lot of ways that we're instructed to talk to the Creator and to know what we're supposed to do. You know, I was at a conference in Washington last Thursday, get a little time warp there. And this guy was talking about this word in Ojibwe. You know, he wasn't an Ojibwe person, and he had this word, it's mashkode. And he said, he was talking to, he's a design architect, he said it means burned over bare place. And he was talking about the practice of burning the prairies and how indigenous people managed landscapes, which is one of those mythologies that is not taught. I mean, it's taught that this was a vast uninhabited land that people came and found. Instead of that, pretty much every bit of this land had someone's hand upon it, and that people lived as parts of ecosystems, which is a really important concept because we live in a society which, by and large, does not live as a part of an ecosystem. It's a predator on an ecosystem, right? And so he was talking about this word, and here I'm listening to this guy, pretty much this white guy, talk about this word, and first he was saying it all wrong, he was apologizing to me, and I was listening to him, and I listened to this guy. It just shows you can learn something from somebody. And I said, I never thought about that word, but the word is mashkoding. I corrected him how it's pronounced, and it means, it refers to the prairie. And what that word means in our language is, it means the place of the burned medicines, because it referred to the fact that we burned all of the prairies in order to keep a lot of the plants come back when they're burned. And that's how they are seeded, which is an interesting thing. So I'm telling you that because sometimes in your language itself is contained the knowledge of the practice of the land. And that is an important concept, and one of the reasons that cultural diversity is as important as biological diversity. Because in that cultural practice is sometimes the knowledge about how to recover your relationship to the land and collectively learn how to live in a place. So that is what I want to talk a little bit about tonight. There is a phrase in Ojibwe. Now I know you're all really worried I'll spend all evening talking Ojibwe and translating it here. But what the heck, huh? No, I won't, but I do think that it's really important, I like these concepts. So there's this concept in Ojibwe, there's this word, Misawaabandaaming, which means, if you translate it into kind of common everyday English, you would get something like positive window shopping for your future. Isn't that a good phrase? And that is what we need to be about. We need to be about the process of saying, this is what we want our future to look like. We need to be about the process of giving ourselves permission to have that vision as to what our future looks like. I work for, my whole adult life in, my community and in other communities, trying to look at the process of how you create change, how you recover control over your destiny, that process of self-determination, how that is actualized in communities, whatever communities they are. How we do that. The reality is that change is inevitable. It is just a question of who controls the change. All of us, we've seen massive change in our lives. If you're a little bit older, you've seen even more dramatic change in the time that you've been here on this earth. But our younger people, I have a lot of teenagers in my house, they think that the way it is now is the way it always was. And they grow accustomed to that. And they also think that if there's a problem, it's going to be solved in about 48 minutes because that's how long it takes on TV. And that is not how it works. And change can be gradual and change can be dramatic, but it is a process that you can engage in. So that is what I want to talk a little bit about how individuals move from being victims to taking direction, taking charge of their situation, what causes them to do that, and how they move through that process. In my introduction, they're talking a little bit about me running for the office of Vice President of the United States. And the truth is, it is true. I was a member of the largest party in America for many years, which is still the largest party in America today. That is the non-voters. 50% of the American electorate doesn't even vote. That is the largest party in America. It is not the Democrats and it is not the Republicans. It is the non-voters. And there are a lot of reasons that people did not vote. A lot of reasons that I didn't vote. Whether it was I remember watching my grandfather look at the TV, and he'd be pointing at the TV going like this. He'd be going, hoodlums and thieves, hoodlums and thieves. Every time the politicians came on, he'd be pointing at us. And he was by and large right is the problem, I mean, on whatever level you want to talk about, obviously there are some people that have a great deal of integrity, but that is the sham, is like how it got like that, and then it is the question of how you change that. If, I don't want to be 80 years old like my grandpa going hoodlums and thieves, hoodlums and thieves, I would rather be about the process of figuring out how to recover democracy. And that is the big challenge. So I remember campaigning in 2000, there I was with my little baby trucking around, and I go, I leave my 12-year-old daughter at home and my 10-year-old son at the time, and I go trucking off, and my daughter says to me one day, she says, "What are you going to do, Mom?" And I was kind of feeling Joan of Arcish or something. I said, I'm going off to recover democracy. Which is, I think, where you got that quote. And she said, are you going to be gone long? We haven't quite done that yet. We got a little work to do in that recovering democracy department. I've been home since then. But that is a little bit of the challenge that we face in kind of the broader context. And do I think that we all have a say in it? I remember this one time when I was running in 2000, and I remember, do you have Savers out here? That place where you can buy really cool used clothing? Savers? No, I'm sorry for you. And we have this really excellent used clothing chain called Savers in the Midwest. I don't know where, I thought it existed out here too. But anyway, you guys need Savers more than Walmart any day, believe me. So you go into Savers and they have Dollar Jeans Day at Savers, And I'm a big proponent of dollar jeans. I mean, why, have you seen this in the store now? You can go spend $50 on a pair of torn jeans. Did you notice this? Torn or, frayed or used, $50, you can go to Savers and get them for $1. That's a lot better idea. So there I was pushing my shopping cart full of jeans through Savers. I was just proud of my bargain shopping, and I'm just all smiling and beaming. You got 8 kids in your house. Savers is a really good place to get jeans. And so I'm pushing my shopping cart through there, and then I get to the checkout stand, and this woman stops me, and she says, "Winona, aren't you Winona LaDuke?" And I said, "Yeah." And she says, "Aren't you running for vice president?" And I said, "Yes, I'm running for vice president. As a matter of fact, this is how I'd run the federal budget, just like this, I mean, I know exactly, I know that a toilet seat does not cost $10,000. Where were those guys? Where did those guys learn to shop, I want to know? Bolts, $5,000. And they turned around and they gave those military contractors new contracts, the same thing, after they bilked us out of all that money. So anyway, that is a little bit about, sometimes, as Ralph says, a private citizen must become a public citizen. Sometimes you must get outside of your arena of comfort to do something, which may be outside of your family, or it might be outside of your little neighborhood or your school. And sometimes you must do that because that's what engaged society requires. That's what the richest and most powerful and most dangerous country in the world requires, is it requires people to engage civically in it. And it's what our communities require, and that's what our communities are in need of. Are we doing okay over there? Yes, good. I got to hang out with them all afternoon. I felt very secure. So I want to talk about how people make change and some of that process. I usually like to quote my friend Tom Goldtooth when asked when it is that he thought that change would come to this society. And Tom, who's this great big Navajo guy, he says, change will come to American society when the white men in this society realize that the chemicals in the environment are causing their testicles to shrink. Then money will flow like water to the environmental movement, And that's true. And the bad news is, guys, that's what's going on, and but we would like to see change happen a little bit before then, and so that may be one reason that change occurs, and then sometimes, then I think I have this one friend, and I asked her, she was in an abusive relationship for about 5 years, and I asked her at what point she decided to get out of that relationship, like what caused her to stop all of a sudden. And she said to me, she said, "Sister, I was putting up my Indian coat hangers." That's what she called them. She said, those nails on the wall? She says, "My Indian coat hangers, I was putting them up." That's what she said to me. She said, "And I put them up really high so that when I noticed I was putting them up really high so that if he slammed my head against the wall, I wouldn't get my head hit on a nail." That's what she said. And she said, all of a sudden I flipped and I realized what I was doing and that I needed to get out of there, And so it is, why do we all of a sudden, what makes us say no? What makes us say you cannot poison us? What makes us say you cannot bring that here, you cannot do that to us? Or what makes us say, hey, we're gonna stand up and we're gonna make a difference, That is kind of the question that I'm interested in our communities, which is the question of our survival, really, in my perspective. So I had the privilege of traveling around Indian country a lot, and I was on the Rosebud Reservation, Rosebud Lakota Reservation, here about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And I went out there for a couple of reasons, and one I'll talk about later, but one I'll talk about now, which is there's this group there. They don't have the best of acronyms, but they are a pretty cool bunch. So there's a hog farm that wanted to come out there onto their reservation. Not like a little hog farm, like a really big hog farm. Each each site having the capacity of 48,000 hogs. They were talking about like 200,000 hogs, 13 proposed hog raising sites built, 13 times 480,000, 480, that's a little bit more than 200,000. I mean, they're talking about 500,000 hogs, in this community that they just got this water project that's going in there, and the water project, they didn't have water in some of their areas of the reservation. They didn't have irrigation, and so they got this water project put through, and it turned out that how did that happen? That the water project the funding seemed to stop when it got to the hog farm. How's that work, huh? That's why you call it pork barrel project, huh? That's exactly what happened. So you go out there and the water project stops at the hog farm, and the rest of the reservation didn't get all of the water out there. I just found that really irritating. But these Indian people got really concerned about the hog farm. And there was a lot of reasons why that got approved initially, but they took the hog farm to court. And, which ends up being Sun Prairie, Bell Farms, and Hormel. Is who it ends up being. They take them to court, and they finally win at the Supreme Court. This was this amazing case. The Supreme Court about 2.5 weeks ago basically ruled in favor of the Indians, saying that the lease held by the hog farm was in violation of federal law. So it's like the first time in history that a hog farm doesn't have a lease, And that I call them before I go out there to visit, and I said they had just had this victory, and they're having their victory dinner. They're really, it's this total grassroots group. The group is called, this is their acronym, the group is called Concerned Rosebud Area Citizens, or CRAC, I was like, way to go with the acronym, you guys, But anyway, CRAC took on the hog farm, and they won.